Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today and share an Omega Insight. We completed an Omega 1 last night. It was a really good group of people, very motivating, very inspirational, just captured my heart. So thank you all who participated in this last Omega 1. I love doing those programs. It's almost like that's what I was designed to do. So thank you all for attending. I appreciate it. Now, tonight's topic is sacrifice necessary? Now, I think it's a good question. What is the point of sacrifice? Why should we sacrifice? And is it necessary for our personal growth? That's really what I want to go to. The idea of personal growth. So sacrifice in itself, in the simplest definition, sacrifice means to make something sacred. I could make an item sacred, a person sacred, but how to make something sacred. And to make something sacred really means to prepare it for the highest good. Now, in history, throughout history, in all forms of worship, all across the world, sacrifice has been an element. And in the olden days, sacrifice was often considered an animal. At first, it was an animal. Human sacrifices have been known to happen as well. But when it came to the animal, you find the best animal and you clean it up and you make it as pure as you can to offer it to the gods as an offering. That's what the sacrifice would be. And the point of the offering to the god would be to appease the gods so that there wouldn't be any wrath. That's not the type of sacrifice that I'm speaking about. I'm really addressing more the personal sacrifices. Me, as a human being, what do I personally sacrifice to help me on my personal growth journey, to become more conscious and aware? What are some of the things that I sacrifice? Well, we can easily say that sacrifice, it causes a form of release, like I release myself from something. And I could quickly connect it to the 7 deadly sins. You have lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. So with sacrifice, so stick with pride. Let's say I can sacrifice my need to be the most important person in the room and let somebody else have the spotlight. That would be considered a sacrifice. When it comes to envy, I could sacrifice my need to compete with another individual so that that person, even though I want what they have, no, let them have what they have. And just put my needs, I shelve my needs, because it really isn't that important or imperative for me to have. When it comes to wrath, like anger, obviously, I'd sacrifice the emotion. And so this is a good point right here. Sacrifice means I'm rising above my emotions, because my emotions are what keep me connected to the physical items that I have in my life. That's emotion. So if I can arise above them, then I'd have a better ability to sacrifice. With sloth, laziness, being lazy, I can sacrifice, and this is actually a willpower exercise. Sacrifice, I'm exhausted. Well, instead of sitting down, you know what, let me get up and go for a 10-minute walk. So I can sacrifice my relaxation time to develop my willpower, not at the expense of injuring ourselves. So I must necessarily say this. Harmlessness is a key component of sacrifice. My sacrifice must not cause injury to others or to myself. But a 10-minute walk when I'm tired, yeah, I could do that. Of course, greed, I can sacrifice. Do I really need to buy that next book that I want to have, or do I really need to have back when I was growing up, it was the designer jeans, the labels, they call them the labels now. Do I really need to have everything that's labeled? Do I need to have the next greatest iPhone? I think I'm at an 8 right here. I know we're up to 12 or something. It's probably going to hit 13 soon. Do I really need to have the latest and greatest? Well, that would be a sacrifice on that part. Of course, gluttony, how much do I have to have? That's sacrificing. When we sacrifice is like cleaning down, like go through their closet and how many shirts do we need to have? How many pairs of shoes? My husband would laugh at me for saying that right now. I do. Have a lot of shoes, and I used to say I'm a girl, but that's not it. I know some guys that have a lot of pairs of shoes, but how often am I wearing all of them, and are they comfortable? So, that would be a necessary thing to do, is perhaps maybe discover, can I sacrifice all of these and just modify myself down to what's necessary, maybe a little bit more than what's necessary. And then, of course, lust, the last one of the seven deadly sins, when we lust after someone, that's emotions and attachment. I'm desiring something. Well, I could sacrifice that desire. Is that necessary? Do I, especially if the person's already taken, and if you're already taken, that would be a lower vibration. So that's just a connection to, that's a connection to the seven deadly sins. I shook the camera to make a point. So sacrifice also, if we think about this, like we can sacrifice space. I'll use this as an illustration, sharing an office with my husband. I typically, that's my space, this is my office. Well, I can sacrifice the space so that another person can share, and they too can have an office space. It's not too much of a sacrifice, because do I really need to have a whole room? Well, sometimes I do, and I can always move about, but sacrificing it for the benefit of another individual, I certainly can do that. When I've done this, many people have done this, when you go out to eat and there's a dessert and your son or daughter wants it and there's only one piece left, you sacrifice and let them have it. It's, again, not that it's harming me, it's harmless, it's just a dessert. What's the big deal? Let them have it. When we think about sacrifice, sacrifice also leads me to nobility. When I practice sacrifice, it brings me to a noble state of being. I love the word nobility, and I love the concept of being a noble individual. Sacrifice gets me there, where I have a sense of integrity and compassion, awareness. When it comes to sacrifice, I'm aware of the needs of others. And I can sacrifice my meal for someone else who happens to be struggling. Again, not at the expense of my livelihood, but one meal is not going to hurt me. No. I know that fasting is often another thing that's quite prevalent. As a matter of fact, I love doing fasts. I'll do a cleanse or a fast for like 3 days. Now, it's not really a fast because I'm doing a cleanse, but I'm not eating, in other words, or I can spend a day and do a fast and not eat to let my body rest. So I'm sacrificing perhaps maybe the birthday cake that somebody's having. I may not have a piece of that. And I know this all doesn't sound like sacrifice, but it really is a form of sacrifice. Denial is what it really comes down to. I'm consciously denying myself something that I desire. That's sacrifice. Large things, small things, anything that we do is sacrifice. And I connected this to willpower as well, because it does. It develops my willpower. I can sacrifice sleeping in to get up and go work out. That's a sacrifice. A small part, it's a sacrifice. And that's how it starts. It starts small. The small little things that we're looking for builds into larger sacrifices. Again, the concept of sacrifice is to help purify myself, to make myself pure for a higher purpose, for something good. So if I look at that position, the idea of waking up and not sleeping in, sacrifice that extra hour of sleep in to go work out, helps my physical body so that I can continue on doing the work that I'm doing. So it makes a contribution. It's a hard topic, it really is, because we have to separate the idea of the sacrificial, religious rites sacrificial things to more of a personal. If you really do just stick with the ability to deny myself of my desires, that's a sacrifice, and it's a conscious effort. Therefore, by me being conscious to sacrifice something for a little bit, again, nothing harmful, but a little bit of sacrifice will help enable me to have clarity. I think about, when I think about sacrificing, I think about how it helps me define what it is that I want in my life. when it comes to large sacrifices, I'm very trepidatious here because I don't want to talk about things that I've done. It's all about me. It's not what I'm wanting. I'm thinking about watching people who sacrifice themselves to sacrifice money or themselves or ideas for the greater good. I think that's wonderful as well. There have been people who have sacrificed their lives for the assistance of another human being. We could look at 9/11 and the first responders who sacrificed their lives. They didn't go in there thinking, I'm going to die, but they knew there was a risk that they could die anytime they enter into a fire or a burning building. So that would be considered a sacrifice. I'd say that the sacrifice of a human being, a conscious sacrifice of a human being, is probably the highest form of sacrifice there is. But we don't need to go to that in order to experience sacrifice. On a personal level, as a personal growth, there are many things that we can do personally to sacrifice for my own expansion. And therefore, that makes it be a contribution to the people in my life. So thank you for letting me stumble through this. It's a great topic. I really think it's a great topic. And I would encourage you this week to think about different types of sacrifices that you can make consciously. Remember, a sacrifice is a conscious act. So consciously thinking about a way to deny yourself a desire and practice the form of sacrifice. I look forward to seeing you all on Friday. I'll do a coffee talk. And again, thank you all for who attended the Omega 1. Hit our website up and register for Omega 2. Get on that wait list. Once we reach the amount of people, we will set a date for the Omega 2. Have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you soon. And as always, thank you for keeping the spirit of Omega alive. Bye now.